Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kingdom Builders and Entrepreneurs, where faith meets business and purpose fuels profit. So, today I have my friend Lathanael Olson, and I'm really excited because he has an amazing story. And I'm so proud of him where he is in his career journey, but also where he just is in life, like how much faith he has and like how he really puts that on the forefront of what he does on a day to day. So we're just gonna have a casual conversation and just talk a little bit about like his life story and like how he got to where he is now and how that can really inspire other people. So Nathaniel, I'm gonna let you go ahead and take it away if you want to do a little introduction on yourself.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Isabella, for just having me here today, and hopefully this is helpful for everybody out there. A little bit about myself, though. I grew up in the church. That for my whole entire life, I was literally born into it, and so it was a great time growing up with my family and friends. We were always getting along with doing different church activities, so that was a great time growing up. But my faith, though, really became my own later down the road. I would say inside of like my high school career, as well as moving into college. But a little bit about me overall. Um, so I'm a faith-based financial advisor nowadays. So I love just being able to see where we can help out if possible, and just thinking about being a biblical steward with the assets that God has given us. So that's what I do for work. But on when I'm not busy working and helping people, I love being able to give back to the community. One really big thing that I'm doing right now is actually coaching junior high football. So you can see me running around with some seventh and eighth graders and ninth graders on the football field, coaching O line and D line, and just loving every single moment pouring into those kids and just seeing how God's using them in the day to day lifestyle. But I also I help lead a young adults group at church as well, and so I came back after church, like going to college, then coming back home, and really struggled to find a little bit of a church community for post college grads, and so really try to dive in to develop a community where people could feel safe and open to come out, and just knowing that where they're not going to be judged and they can be able to just live life and see what God's got on their heart. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and love just being able to hang out with people and have a great time.
That's awesome. Um, I think it's interesting how people our age, because we're both in our late 20s, at some point, like when we're in our faith journey or when we're really like ingrained in church, we have a calling to help the younger generation. So I
Mhm.
recently, God has been pulling me to start serving on the kids serve team. And now I feel like I'm being called into doing high school ministry. And so I know that for me at least, that's happening because God's just really changing my heart on a lot of things. And I think what's really cool is that we can pray and ask God to help change our hearts on certain things. And you really never know where that's going to lead you. So, since we're just talking about the youth right now, like, how has that been? And what kind of made you want to start teaching, like, middle school football and, like, get involved with the youth group?
Yeah. So for football wise, I actually got asked by my cousin to do this a couple of years back when I was first starting off the business, and I had to unfortunately tell him I couldn't at that time because I didn't have the flexibility. But since then, I've gotten the business into a place where it's really in a safety net, and so God's good. I owe it all to Him, and knowing that He's the reason why it is what it is today. But I've allowed that flexibility now in my schedule to be able to really dive in. And my cousin tapped me on the shoulder again this past like spring, and he was like, "Hey, we need some help on the line. We have some kids that aren't necessarily getting their blocks, and I absolutely love football. That football growing up for me, I didn't play until I was a freshman in high school, but it changed my life because it gave me my true brotherhood and being able to depend on other people. But knowing though that I actually played football for the public school and I went to a private school. So we had a co-op that we had, and it honestly changed my life. And I know that I wanted to be able to do that same thing for those kids, and knowing how impactful my coach was, and instilling those good principles inside of me. So, um, that's something that I really desired to be able to do with these kids. And honestly, every single day that I show up, I love it. It I love the sport. I love being able to know that it's a team and we all come together, and being able to know that whatever we do and throughout life, I can be able to depend on these kids that they're always going to put a smile on my face. I can depend on the other coaches if I'm going through a hard time inside of life that I can because they're all faith-based guys as well. Um, Being able to really just pull me up and if I'm having a bad day as well. So just absolutely love the game of football and just being able to get those strict disciplines and starting that up, those routines for those kids so soon. But for the young adult side of things, um, I got into it right out of college, just trying to be able to search for a church. I think that was one of the tough parts for it for me, anyways, because I was coming to back home where an area where I was inside of the same exact church for I don't know, that was probably 20 years or so, right? And so everybody knew me growing up, but I feel like there was a difference when you come back from college. You learn so much and your personality changes. And I came back and I was going to church and I felt like everybody was viewing me as a little kid still. And so there was a little bit of that soul searching of finding a new place where I can call home and being able to have that church body that I can depend on. And so I found that at a different church, I actually, instead of driving 5 minutes down the road to church, I actually drive 30 minutes to church now. So it's like one of those things where it was a good switch up for me. And knowing to find that a small adult, like young adult group and being able to have that tight knit so that way we can depend on one another and just creating different events, whether it's being able to have everybody for a camp over for a campfire or getting together for Bible study, but things of that nature has been really, really nice.
That's awesome. So, bringing it back to when you were in high school playing football, um, where did you end up going to college? Like, how did you decide that if you were playing football and you really loved that? Like, how did you decide what to do?
Yeah. So I actually had a couple of scholarships available for me to go and play actually at the Division 1 level, but they were all at secular schools and um, something growing up inside of my family that we were to go to a Christian school or Christian college. That was kind of like the status quo of my family, and so my parents helped direct me down that path, I will say. Otherwise, I probably would not be in the position that I am today. And I'm extremely thankful that they helped guide me throughout that process. And I actually went to Liberty University. I originally started studying biomedical science there, but God had a little bit different story for me, and He had a different plan long term of what He wanted for my life. So.
Yeah. Well, if that's what you started in, what did you end with?
So I ended up having a degree in finance, but then also minored in accounting.
Okay. What was it just kind was it just like you were not interested in what you were doing anymore and or was there like a realization like, "Oh, I should probably go this way because oh, granted, Thrive It right now is um or okay, wait, yeah, because I'm trying to figure out like how you got from like football to college to Thrive It.
Hmm.
So can you go into okay, you're in college, you're at Liberty. What is that like being in a Christian college? Because I actually don't know. I went to a secular one. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
So coming out of high school, going into Liberty was a great time because there's a bunch of kids that are what I knew as status quo because I went to a private Christian school growing up. Um, it was all the same to me, right? And it was somewhere where I felt very comfortable. I was excelling from an academic perspective. Um, Things were going really, really well. However, God had a little bit of a different story for me in the sense that I got a concussion my sophomore year of college. So I was just with that, like I was going down the path that I thought was best for me at that time. Going and pursuing a career in the medical field, I actually wanted to become a neurosurgeon at that time. But I got a concussion. I had to actually drop out of college. I forgot who I was. I forgot who my parents were. I forgot um, how to read. Right. But kind of the crazy part that comes along with my story in reality is I could do calculus and organic chemistry. I don't know why God chose those to be the two things that I knew, but for some reason, He wanted me to be able to do math, which I kind of feel like that translated into what I do now. But with that though, God really took control of my life, and I actually dropped out of college my sophomore year. And I went throughout that concussion process because I forgot who I was. I had to refine myself and being able to have my family help me out with that process because I also didn't know who they were, and so it was a very, very stressful time, you could say to say the least. But that's where being able to um, really hold on to what God has put on my heart um, was key in those moments because I kind of forgot about the Lord as well, though. So it's one thing that I got reintroduced to church pretty quickly after the concussion, but being able to kind of like hit that restart button. And so, from a faith-based perspective, it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, it was a very big struggle, and that's where like I always go back to. Um, it's in Psalms, being the having the Lord be our shepherd and guiding our paths, and truly knowing that like what He is doing and what He has planned out for our lives, He doesn't make a mistake. And knowing that throughout this process, I refound myself. I went down the path of landscape construction, did what any landscaper would do, and I bought a truck. Came up with a plan to be able to pay off that truck though inside of a year throughout strict budgeting as well as the stock market because for some reason I fell in love with the stock market afterwards. After my concussion, because no, I think it was numbers made sense to me, and so I used to literally sit there watch Fox Business and watch the tickers and Charles Payne going off about all the different stocks. And so I just absorbed that knowledge. And so that's where I came up with that plan to pay off the truck. I did that. And I had a few friends and family and close individuals to me come up to me and say, hey, this is not exactly normal. You need to help people with this and being able to know that you have a gift um, for personal finances and knowing that we can see you put this tool to use. So I went back to Liberty University then and went back on campus and got my degree in finance and minored in accounting from them. And then I actually got recruited from college then throughout that process to work at Thrivent then.
That's amazing. So, when you were going through your concussion, you do you remember did you remember that you were going to school for a certain thing? Like, no?
No, I and that's so they every and that was a difficult part of it because everybody would tell me stuff, right? And my memory, like I could, if someone told me something afterwards, after the concussion, I was fine remembering it. It was just everything pre that I completely forgot, and so that's where my grandfather, oh, I love him so much. Um, he he used to send me a card almost every single day and they would have pictures from us from childhood, and he would write Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 inside of there every single time, and write out the verse, and just trying to spark a memory. So I have hundreds of cards from my grandfather, um, just trying to be able to get my memory back, and those are cards that I cherish and I cling to because it was such a tough period of my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna look up that Psalms. You said it was Psalms what?
No, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. So it's trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight.
That's amazing. When
Yeah.
was there a point in time where that Proverbs like clicked? Because I'm sure that you were going through so much anxiety and confusion. I feel like majority was probably anxiety of like what's going on right now. How did like what was kind of calming your anxiety during that time?
So back then I was a little bit of a different guy. I was definitely not as vocal as I am today. Um, I and maybe this is just like the status quo of what guys do, but I worked. And I worked landscape construction from sun up to sundown. Um, and I wouldn't come home until like sometimes 10 o'clock at night because I'd be doing stuff, fixing different things at the shop, and then I'd eat dinner at 10 o'clock at night, and then I would go back to the shop at 5:30 in the morning and just work it out. And so that's where I spent a lot of my days just doing physical labor and trying to get my mind off of everything and not worry about what had happened, but thinking about what to go towards.
Hmm. And how did you do you think you were just wired that way? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that if they were in your situation, they would just get really depressed, continue to think about the past. How are you able to have that mindset? Was it like someone in your life that told you like, hey, like just think about the future, or like how did you go about that?
Um, I think that was because it was more along the lines of having everybody around me had a purpose, and I felt like I didn't have a purpose. And so my purpose was going to be to work. And and I just threw myself into it because that was one of the things that I could do, and it got me out of the house because for so long, like the first 6 months, I really didn't do anything after my concussion. Like I became a little bit of a couch potato and like my because I was just relearning how to do life,
Right.
right? Like I
I don't blame
and
you.
so yeah. So I was relearning how to do life, and I became a little bit of a couch potato at that point, doing different things here and there. But it was a struggle to get outside of the house. And so once I had that taste of freedom, I think also um, that motivated me to be outside of the house. And I also like I wanted the truck too. That was another big motivator. I was like I also wanted to pay that thing off, and so I knew that I had to work to get that thing paid off. And so when I find a goal that I want to obtain, um, I will fixate on it, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and I will fixate it onto the point where I'm just thinking about it all the time until I get that accomplished. And once I get that accomplished, I have my little moment of celebration. I'll take a minute, but then it's off to the next thing, right? And that's how I think I'm wired, when it comes to it. I am just very goal oriented, and I'm gonna check that box and keep on moving forward and keep on going to the next thing. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Um,
yeah.
for anyone that maybe does struggle with let's say like finding their purpose, right? Like whether it's outside of a career or in a career, do you have any advice on like how to strive to just keep going? Do you have any like scripture or like just words of encouragement that you've heard in the past?
Yeah, so one thing that really worked for me, um, talk talk to God like he's right there next to you because he really is. Um, I can't tell you like I'm not whether this is right or wrong, like I mean, I've screamed at the Lord before. I can remember being in my truck saying like, I don't understand why you're doing this, why I was the one that needed to go through this or anything like that. And I remember having countless different times inside of my truck where I viewed him in my passenger seat while I'm driving down the road, and we're just having a blown conversation. Now, I've also had the same other side of it where I've broken down and I'm just like, Lord, like I'm here, I am your, let me be your vessel, and just whatever you're trying to communicate through me to be able to make sure that is extremely evident for others to hear. And so, like, talk to God like He's your best friend, and knowing that like He truly is, and He wants to hear from you. um, and being able to know that having him direct your paths and just listening. I think that a lot of times we have a lot of noise inside of our culture where we have this going on over here, we have this going on over here for social media, and social media brings it all together. And we can simply scroll on our phones and we can be able to have instant access to things. But we have to unplug throughout all that noise to be able to hear the whisper that God has given to us because He's talking to us, right? And I had a pastor that gave a sermon. There's like 10 different ways that God talks to us, right? And silence is one of those, right? Whether we want to accept that or not. Um, but being able to know that He talks through other people to us, He also talks through the Word, through the Word and through prayer with us. And so we just gotta always be ready for that faint whisper because we're not everybody's gonna be able to have the pillar of fire just directing their paths. Unfortunately, we're not all the Israelites, right?
Yeah. Um, and I feel like I skipped over this, but I wanted to talk about how I even met you. And I think this is just a really cool testimony, I think. But and then I'll relate it back to like the whisper of God. But so when I first met Nathaniel, I was really going through, I don't want to say a spiral, but I was going through a season where God was calling me to do something and it was not something that I was used to. This is when I started to realize that I was walking the path that He did not want for me, which included my career potentially. And um, I just felt like I needed backup. I felt like I needed like a team and I really wanted them to be Christian. So I remember praying and I was just like, God, like I need help, like I need help organizing things. I really want to find a financial planner or someone that can like just have my back on something. And I remember I was like trying to reach out to all these secular people and it didn't feel right, and a lot of them I didn't even end up reaching out to. But then we have a mutual connection. He goes to my church, but he's one of Lathaniel's clients, and he was telling me about Lathaniel, and I just remember when I met you, well, like on the phone, I guess. I just remember like after we had our conversation, after I prayed with you, after all of that, like I just felt like that was such an answered prayer because I don't know, it just worked out so perfectly. Like you've talked about how the reason why you help people that are younger or that are starting off is because you were there at some point and you didn't really have anyone there. Um, so okay, so we're going from landscaping, right? So you were working, 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 working. You were doing everything you did to like pay your bills, to achieve your goals. And you created your work ethic like through that, even if it
Mhm.
didn't start off maybe necessarily the right way to like get away from all the things
Yeah.
that you just went through. But at some point, you said your family was like, hey, you just achieved all your goals after just having this huge concussion. And yeah, so then how did you get to end up working with Thrivent? Like, how did you decide that?
Yeah, so I went through the finance program at Liberty, and the way that Liberty's structured, there's really great professor down there named Kirk Cornfield. He's in charge of the financial planning division down there and really heads that program. And it was a absolute blessing, one, to be able to study underneath him because he had over 30 years of experience in the industry, and so one being able to study underneath of him, but he actually brought multiple different institutions in to be able to talk to us as students and being able to know that um, making sure that if we're like trying to get internships or being able to find job placement, things of that nature. And I've talked to a lot of the different institutions, and for whatever reason, um, uh, there there maybe wasn't the fit for the other institutions, right? But I really chose Thrive and being able to have to go move forward with that offer because one, I was able to grow my practice myself, right? It was my book of business and being able to have that, but also being able to know though, first and foremost, that I can talk about my faith and I don't have to leave it at church on Sunday. I don't have to I don't have to like pretend that like, oh, I'm just an advisor that happens to be a Christian. I get to be a faith-based advisor. And that is a big difference because I get to be able to help individuals become a biblical steward with the assets that God has given them and help them along their path and from a generosity perspective. Because a lot of the conversations that I have with people, it is geared behind in light of what God has really given you from a financial aspect. What is God putting on your heart? And thinking about how can we help you achieve your mission that God has given you and being able to do that from a financial aspect and knowing that everything's taken care of. We don't we that that people don't have to worry about retirement, things of that nature, but being able to truly just hone in on what's God really putting on their heart to be able to do, and having more conversations all around there. So, but yeah, so I got recruited out of college though. I had a conversation with Thriven, and the individual that I actually met originally, his name was Richard Keller, and he got me connected. It was a great relationship, and kind of really started off from there. Had some bumps along the way. Not gonna. Uh, I'm a very transparent person. I'm not going to sugarcoat that at all. I had some bumps along the way because opening up your own business right out of college, um, not exactly the most feasible thing. But I am extremely thankful for the family that I do have because I would not be here today without them. And so they allowed me to have the launch pad that I had, being able to go back and live at home and not have to worry about that expense. Um, and so I got to focus in on the business and I worked like a dog. I worked 80 hours a week, but I got to be able to talk about faith all the way through with it. And so that's where the landscaping to thriving really changed because I was constantly in different churches just talking to people and talking about how God's working inside of their lives and how we can come alongside and just slowly help them with what they're doing already.
How important is it, do you think, to have Christians in the marketplace?
Oh, extremely, extremely. I think that we have to be there and we have to be boots on the ground because the way that we, one, interact with other individuals is different. And two, being able to know that we are planting those seeds now for individuals so that they can see that we're different and they can be all lines. Oh, so and so says that they're going to show up at this time, they're going to do that. So and so says that they're going to do something and they are fulfilling that and going above and beyond. And not only doing that in that way, but also making sure that we're leading from what's best for them first, because I take it wholeheartedly of love your neighbor as yourself, right? Going back to that principle and being able to know that from the marketplace that we need to be able to love them like others and being able to truly just bring them in and see how we can become one with it. So, and I'm a big advocate of everybody's welcome at my table. I don't turn anyone around or down or anything. I actually in college I used to have a thing where if everybody went to church, they could come over to my place and I'd make brunch for everybody. So,
Oh,
but they had to go to church. They had to go to church. So that was one of the big things. So, um, trying to be able to get everybody to hear the word is the key.
yeah. Um, were you when you were starting to work for Thrivent, were you really involved in the church at the time since you were working like 80 hours?
So, yeah, I still was very involved. It was just my so at that time, I was at church on Sundays, and then on Monday nights at 7 o'clock, I had my Monday small group. So that for my young adult group, and that was extremely helpful for me. But then we used to have different things like on Fridays we would go like either bowling or if we would go have like a fire outside or we would go off and do something like we in the where I live in Pennsylvania, it's very rural but like we have cities nearby and stuff, and so we would go maybe have a day in the city, stuff like that. So we were constantly having that community. It's just that 5 a.m. came around, I was up working, and I would still be working until 10 o'clock at night throughout the other days of the week. So I used to take appointments at like 7:30 at night. I mean, I still do sometimes today, but I would maybe sometimes have like a 6 a.m., but then also a 7:30 at night. And so I was just working both ends of the burning both ends of the candlestick.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people that might be working, but they don't have time for like church or just things in their church community? Like, how do you organize yourself to get to be able to do both things?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's still something that I struggle a little bit with today. Um, so one thing that I always stay rooted in is like when I'm making out my calendar, because I have flexibility of mine anyways. Um, it's what are my hard blocks, right? The things that are super important to me that I cannot miss. And I I simply as a business owner at that point in time, if I'm at church or um, if I'm at a Bible study or if I'm at a small or young adult event, a small get together, I'm not answering my phone, right? That's a do not disturb. I can be able to get back to work after that, right? But throughout that time frame, I am taking time off and having that peace of mind, thinking about, okay, this is to rejuvenate myself, right? There's a reason why God tells us to be able to take the Sabbath off, right? We can't be, if we're going, we're gonna have a burnout phase eventually, right? That everybody's fuse is a little bit different, but at some time you're gonna have a little bit of a burnout. And so it's making sure that you're taking that time to rejuvenate, but resurrendering your mind, but it starts with those hard blocks. So like church is I literally have church on my calendar. I know that that might sound insane, but that's something for me that I need to be able to have, right? It's like I know where I'm going to be, right? And I don't take appointments on Sundays, but it's one of those things where like on Sunday, I'm going to be at church and then I might have a get together with friends afterwards. But knowing that throughout that busyness of life, you have to take time for the things that really matter most. So, and I've that's not always been the easiest thing for me to learn because with especially with friends, I, and especially if you talk to some of my old high school buddies as well, they'll tell you that I became a little bit of a work monster in the sense of I was taking meetings all the time throughout the week, and they're like, "Hey, when are you gonna come and hang out?" It's like it's not the normal, and it's just being able to shift, not priorities, but being able to shift where my focus was, and knowing what I wanted to be able to accomplish, and knowing that I still love all my friends, I'm still there for them. They know that they can call me at any time, and I'm there, but it's being able to make sure though that. Um, where everything falls in line. And being able to know that long-term success, you have to make some sacrifices up front to do so.
Yeah. So me and you have had the conversation of hearing God's whisper, right? Because God sometimes does not just like bluntly tell us to our face, like, hey, this is what I want you to do. There's no like magic voice that's like screaming at us, like, hey, actually go this way, stop what you're doing. I mean, sometimes in my experience, like that has kind of happened, but most of the time it's going to be a whisper. So when you're blocking all these things out, like do you block out time to like read scripture? Do you block out time to spend time with God? Like how do you listen to God's whisper in the busyness?
Yeah, so that's really where the 5 a.m. club comes along. So, it's waking up early and it's being able to know that that morning time frame, that's for the Lord, right? And being able to spend that time in His Word and being able to have that quiet time. But something that I've done more recently, based off of one of the mentors that I have, what he's really suggested for me is one time throughout the month, right? It's the same. It's usually for me, it's the same Friday or Saturday. But that day, being able to completely unplug, right? I don't take my phone with me. I don't take any electronics with me. And I'll go out into the woods. I'm an outdoorsman, so that's one other big thing. So like I'll go out in the woods and I'll just sit there with my Bible and with a scratch pad and being able to just hear about from the Lord, like, hey, what do you want me to hear today, Lord? And being able to spend that time, and no one can get it, the world. Something bad could be happening in the world, to be quite frank, and I don't know about it, you know. But it's being able to refocus on what God is really pushing me towards and that connection. Because when I become off tune, right, with and I feel like I'm not pouring enough of my time inside of with and having that time with the Lord, I feel off. And so that's a big peace of mind for me to be able to just have that calmness and being able to truly like meditate on his word and being able to have conversations because I still talk to God every single day, like in my pickup truck. Like I've had people before where they're like, you look kind of strange talking and there's no one there, you don't have any music on or anything like that. I'm just like, that's part of who I am sometimes, you know?
Yeah. What do you think the biggest shift in you was when you went from working landscaping to working at Thriving? Because when you were working at landscaping, you were still working the same amount of hours, but you did not really have God in that, and you didn't really make time for that. Like, how, what was the biggest shift you saw in yourself once you started to apply God into your day to day?
Well, I think that it really started off like it did start off when I was still working landscape construction. I think that the big thing that what ended up happening for me is I got a memory back, and my I was all by myself in a loader actually when I got my first memory back. I that day I was simply knocking down a pile of dirt that we had been at that same location for and just moving it all day. Um, and I hit, I was peeling down the pile, and I had a rock that was in that pile, and it shot through the windshield and hit me in the chest.
Wow.
And yeah, it didn't feel the best, but it was one of those things though where my first memory that I got back was actually playing tag with my cousin. We were about 3 or 4 or so, and I was at my grandfather's house, and they had that old screen out, the screen door, but they had a glass at the bottom, and so I was playing tag, and he was chasing me, and I put my hand right through that glass, and I had that glass shattering, and so that moment I broke down. Um, I was all by myself, like, and I mean, I was sobbing. I'm not usually the big emotional guy, but I was sobbing, and it was just that overwhelming of like, God, you still care about me. It's like throughout all of this, it's still like you still have a plan for my life. I know it, and being able to have that re-surrendering point in my life at that time, that was huge for me. So.
Yeah. Um, so
And that's it, yeah, and that kind of kicked that like kick started it in a sense of just being able to like, okay, I gotta start going to church more consistently again. I gotta start diving into his word, things of that nature.
yeah, because I think we all realize God's love in like different ways. And for you, it was that first memory, which is
Hmm.
right, which is really amazing. So since you were so young when you started a business, what would you say to someone that's maybe coming straight out of high school even or college that maybe want to start a business? Like what would you recommend? What would you say? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I would say go to like whatever business that you have, go to someone that has a similar business and that just ask them to shadow them for a day maybe and being able to see that their process and systems and don't be afraid to ask for help. I feel like in today's society, we kind of like have the pull yourself up by your bootstrap mentality still. But don't be afraid to ask for help, because there's individuals inside of inside of industries where they are more than happy and willing to be able to help you out, or even create a partnership, right? Because they might be inside of a situation where maybe they have too many clients or they have too much going on, and they'll shift things your way. And so that's extremely helpful. But then knowing that, don't be afraid to either hear the word no from somebody if you're in a sales position. Don't be afraid to hear the word no. That should be your best friend. Um, and knowing that it's just going to get you closer to your next yes, as well as being able to, don't be afraid to fail and take that risk, because if you are young, this is the time to take the risk, rather than when you're closer inside of retirement. You don't want to have that what if moment inside of all throughout life, thinking to yourself, what if I would have given it one more shot, or what if I would have done this or that, right? You want to be able to say, I tried it, I gave it honestly my best shot, and if it worked out, great, and if it didn't, that just wasn't the right fit, and you can be able to shift in. Just because you failed there, being able to learn from that failure to take you to your next thing.
Yeah, that's good. Um, the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on was about Christians and their finances. So
Yeah.
I know, I don't even know, because I'm also a baby Christian. So I don't know if people still have the mindset of like, oh, I'm Christian, I should be poor. Like, I personally have never met anyone like that. But I think that maybe there are Christians that realize that like stewarding what God gave us is really important. And outside of just the parable of the talents, I was actually having a conversation with a friend 2 days ago, and she has been working with this healthcare company, and she has all the tools and knowledge that she needs to like start her own business. And she has been called to fast and go through scripture and read Proverbs. And I was like, have you read Proverbs 31? She was like, no, I haven't. And I was like, oh my gosh, you have to read Proverbs 31. And so, what's amazing about that Proverbs is that God doesn't, I mean, specifically for women, He doesn't just tell us to take care of our husband and children, but he talks about a Proverbs 31 woman like a businesswoman. Like she's out
Mm.
here getting different types of wool and creating stuff. She's going out like a merchant ship to like find whatever she needs, or to like find supplies or like sell supplies or whatever to bring back to her family. She's not just feeding her family but her servants. And to me nowadays, that we don't have servants but we have employees, right? um
Mhm.
She's out here buying lands and turning them into vineyards. So she's out here buying real estate, making a profit. Like it's just so many things. And one thing that like was really calling out to me when I was going through this with her was that he in verse I wrote this down the other day. But there's a verse in Proverbs, I think it's maybe like 16 or something, but um where he says that um she laughs at the days to come, and her lamp does not go out at night, or something like that. And to me, I was explaining to her that back in the day we didn't have electric bills, we didn't have like electricity bill, like whatever. We had lamps, and the more that you worked to buy the oil for your lamp, like that's what that was referring to. And to me it's just like, outside of just being a woman, but like she's laughing at the days to come, she's laughing at whatever the devil tries to throw at her, because she's getting prepared, she's getting financially stable, spiritually stable, um like all these other things that a Proverbs 31 woman needs to do. And I don't think that I've ever heard that iteration until I read it myself, which I think is interesting. um but yeah, so what are your thoughts about like Christians and their finances? Like, have you seen more Christians take this seriously now, or have you seen maybe people that are starting to, even if they're not your clients, like, but just your friends or strangers you meet on the streets, like, how have you seen Christians take or not take their finances seriously, and what would you kind of say to that?
Yeah, so I think that our finances is a reflection of what God has given us, right? And so he our finances that the Lord provides you, whether it's a lot or a little, right? He's entrusting you with that. And it's our job to be able to make sure that uh, that's truly going to be used to the best of our ability, right? And knowing that if the Lord is giving you a lot, the Lord doesn't, in my opinion, from my knowledge of the Bible, does not say that we shouldn't be wealthy, right? Um, to whom much is given, much is expected. That that's a truth, right? It's just being able to know that um, with what God does provide for us, what are we looking to be able to bless other people's lives? How can we be able to do something greater, right? And how can we serve from that perspective? And so it might be looking at, instead of the 10% that you tithe, maybe that you are really supporting a whole entire church, right? I have certain individuals then that have businesses, and we talk about the power of what would that look like to be able to gift that away. And so we work with different charities along the lines of their exit plan for for retirement. In reality, they're going to gift their business, right? And they're going to give all those millions of dollars away, right? That's part of what they do. And so it's just really, we should really take our finances seriously, because finances is one of the biggest things that people will struggle with. That's also why I went into this career. That's a portion of it. It's one of the most stressful parts of any marriage as well. And so it's one of those things where we just want to make sure that that everybody has that financial plan overall, and being able to know that they can live the day-to-day lifestyle that they are desiring, but also preparing for tomorrow for that worst case scenario. So that way, if you see someone on the street and they're saying, "Hey, I need $1" or something like that, rather than giving them $1, let's say, "Hey, let's go have a meal together. All right, well, I'm going to pay for your meal. Let's have a conversation, and let's have a conversation along the lines of how can we help your situation, and maybe it's how can we be praying for you throughout that day, things of that nature, of how far you want to take that. But it's being able to know that we're not walking through this life by ourselves, but we can also help others out. And I think that there's also a large portion of where being able to make sure that we're helping the next generation, right? And knowing that they don't have to struggle, and being able to leave that legacy, that's more powerful than financial gain, but also from a spiritual legacy as well.
Awesome.
So,
Well, if you have any last minute things to say, you're more than welcome to. If not, we can close out.
yeah, I would just wrap up and saying thank you for taking the time to be able to talk with me here today. I appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to seeing how everybody takes this. And hopefully, it's been beneficial for the viewers. And really looking forward to seeing what the Lord is doing in the inside of your life, Isabella. But making sure, though, first and foremost, that we're just helping others out, and really just staying rooted in the Lord. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. And everyone, if you're looking for a financial planner, if you're looking for someone that's really rooted in faith and can help you with your finances, I would definitely recommend reaching out to Lathaniel, looking into Thrivent. Lathaniel, can you let them know where to find you?
yeah, if they would want to be able to go online, they can. I have a website, and they'll have all my contact info on there as well. My email will be on there. They can book an appointment, things of that nature. So,
Okay,
yep,
that
and
sounds
phone
good.
number, phone number. Yeah, so it's just my name is Lathanael, so Lathanael, and then Olson, Olsen. I should be like one of the only options. I know my mom made me a little bit different with my name.
Well, thank you, Nathaniel, so much for your time today. Thank you for just being vulnerable with your story and your background. I know that's not easy to remember all those times, but I think the way that God has like like literally planned your life out, like even when it was really hard. It's gotten you to where you are now, and now you're so young. Like, we didn't even talk about the position that you're at right now with Thrivent, but like you're doing really well, like for your age, but just in general, like with how much time you've been working with them. And I just want to say that I am really happy that you are for the kingdom, because we need people like you in that. And I just encourage anyone that if you're going through something difficult, like maybe it's not memory loss completely like Lathanael, but if you're going through something, just like continue to strive. Like, God does not give us a spirit of fear. He does not give us a spirit of laziness. And he wants us to find him in everything that we're struggling with. So, like, I'm just happy that you had a community, Nathaniel, like your parents and your grandfather, that just rooted that in you as soon as you got out of the hospital, because I think that is such an important part of why you are the way you are now, and also like how you got to where you are now. So even if you don't have audience, even if you don't have a community right now, if you don't go to church, if you're the only believer in your family, like, I just encourage you to like keep looking for people like us. Like, KBE is all about that. Like, how do we talk about faith in the marketplace? But also go to church, like find somewhere that you feel comfortable in, that you're learning from, that you're growing from, and just be hungry. Like, when you're hungry and you ask God to feed you, he will. And I assure that. And I think Nathaniel can also agree with me on that. And and yeah, we just pray that this message spoke to you. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Please reach out to Nathaniel. I'll put it on the description notes if you guys want our emails. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks. See you guys.